If we think about the moment in which a parent becomes a NICU parent, we know that the moment is sudden, and it's often surprising for families. It's the moment when a baby is delivered and instead of coming into the arms of the mom, is put into an isolette and wheeled away. As you all know, this is your work, of course. But it's against our primitive nature, our biology, to have our babies separated from us as parents when we give birth. And by virtue of numbers, I know that there are NICU parents in this audience that have had that exact feeling of having their baby wheeled away. What I would say here is that with this incredible opportunity to care for these babies also comes an incredible opportunity to help the parents navigate this really challenging, traumatic journey that they're having. And so today I want to talk to you about what I call parent power, how to empower parents at a time when they may feel powerless and out of control. So when we talk about parent power, we look at the medical outcomes that you all can achieve as healthcare professionals. And we know as parents that you're responsible for the lives of our baby, for taking such compassionate care of them during their time of need. But we also know that, and research tells us that with the help of parents and with parents as part of the care team, the outcomes that you can achieve as medical professionals are increased. So when we change the lens of thinking of parents as visitors and instead think of parents as part of the circle of the care team, we have the opportunity to do a better job for the babies, and we have higher probability of doing better jobs for the families long term. With God's good grace, these families are going to be discharged into the hands of these families, and so we want to set them up for success. So as Daphne referenced, I run the organization ICU Baby, which supports 200 NICU beds in Miami-Dade County. And by the end of the year, we're going to be supporting almost 300 NICU beds. So I come to you today as a NICU parent myself, but more importantly, after 8 years of supporting NICU families here in South Florida, I come to you with all of their insights and all of their experiences and everything that they really want to share with you collectively. And that's how this presentation has been created. So we're going to start with 3 truths for almost every NICU family. The first one is all families have a story leading up to a NICU admission, and it's complicated, and we know that. We know that they're coming into the NICU with past trauma, whether it's infertility treatments or false starts or a sudden delivery. We can think of a litany of reasons why people are coming into that NICU, and it's not easy. So once the baby is brought into the NICU, their experience leading up to that point is layered on that chest of emotions that they already have. Number 2, life outside the NICU is complicated. All of a sudden, parents are having to balance their life outside the NICU with life inside the hospital, and it happens overnight, almost immediately, with very little planning. Number 3, life inside the NICU is complicated. So for all of us who don't have a medical background, myself included, walking into that NICU and hearing those sounds and being surprised at how loud actually a NICU is with all the machinery, the lights, the smells, the whole different dynamic is something that is totally foreign to us that now all of a sudden we're in. Those are the 3 truths for almost every NICU family. We can always find an exception, but that's what we've found in supporting our families. I want to talk to you about a lady that I had lunch with last week. She it kind of serendipitously happened before I had the opportunity to speak with you. And she was an example of a count the kicks mom. So all these chances of luck kind of coordinated with themselves. And she found herself in the NICU 48 hours after her doctor said, you need to count the kicks. And she recounted luck after luck after luck. And she said, if all these things didn't happen, my baby wouldn't be alive. So she delivered her baby, and into the isolette, the baby went. And she said, I felt relieved. I felt good. I felt relieved. I felt like the baby was safe and in good hands. Off the baby went into the NICU, and she followed, of course, a few days later. 1 week later, she said, I sat there in front of my baby, and I felt like a useless mother. And when she said that, and I was sitting there at lunch, I thought, gosh, I'm going to share this with the folks at Delphi, because that is an awful feeling. Feeling like you're useless at anything is an awful feeling, but feeling like you're a useless parent after you've gone through a traumatic birth like that is even worse. So I will end with the conclusion of her story, but this is what we want our parents to feel like. We want them to feel informed, feel heard, Feel like a partner, feel needed, feel included, feel able, feel successful, feel healthy, feel well, and feel united. And we look at all those, and that's what we all want to feel just in our daily lives. But this is when our baby, of course, is in the NICU. So we'll start with the first one, feeling informed. The power of information. Information, as we know, is a great uniter. It's a great clarification. And in this case, this is their tiny newborn, and they want to know everything. And we know some people want the equivalent of a sportscaster giving play-by-play, and we know others are afraid to ask questions. So what we suggest here is regularly communicate. Even if there is nothing to say and there are no updates, just saying there's nothing to report goes a mile with parents. The next is be clear about possible setbacks. What this does is it manages expectations and it manages emotions, and we found that that's been really successful with our parents. Make sure they understand what you are telling them. And this is where I like to pause because there are 2 points here that are really important, particularly in South Florida. Number one is I can speak to you in Spanish right now. Not well, but you get what I was saying. I definitely cannot have a complex medical conversation about my child in Spanish. And here in South Florida, that's what we see. We have families that can speak English, but can they really discuss the care of their baby in English? They can't. So I'd ask to always invite a translator. Number two, what we see is that the NICU world has a totally foreign language. A lot of us don't know what the terms that you are tossing around are. So even if they speak English, they might not be understanding what you're saying. I would say at that point, the best thing to do is ask questions to ensure comprehensibility. Make sure they understand what you're sharing with them. The next is often it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Looking at the culture, the mannerisms of the parent, the emotional state of the parent goes a long way for them to feel heard and for the information to be shared. Parent pro tip number two, the power of a voice. It's not just sharing information and making a one-way stream. It's the collaboration. It's inviting them into that circle. Some parents, because of cultural reasons, relationship reasons, fear reasons, will not speak up without an invitation. Inviting them into the conversation goes such a long way. Also sharing with them, and we do this as parent mentors, you're not going to be able to make decisions in the NICU. That's why we have our healthcare teams. But saying you can be part of the decision-making process is really also very important for parents to hear so they feel like a part of their baby's care. Inviting questions and encouraging conversations is also a way to engage parents in their baby's care. The power of your power. Now, I've given this presentation before, parts of it, and a lot of healthcare teams take issue with this one, but I've not taken it out because it is true. Parents are afraid to speak up. Parents feel the aura of you as healthcare professionals. And a lot of times what we see and what we hear, particularly within a subset of our community, is if I say something, they're going to harm my baby. This is not true. We've never seen it. But this is where I have people say, that never happens. It does. And it happens regularly. In fact, I've gone back to my team and said, is this still happening? Yes, it is. It's the aura of the physicians. It's you, their newborn baby is in your hands. And so they're afraid if they come to you with a different idea or share their concerns that there might be some retaliation. We, of course, dispel that, but it's something that is important to be aware of. Practice humility and approachability. The power of parents' presence. So we know that there are so many research-backed indicators that show outcomes are improved when parents are involved, whether it's kangaroo care, speaking to the baby, there's a litany of reasons. Parents don't know that. They don't know how important their presence is. So in reminding them that being there, they're not only just doing a good thing, but they're actually helping their baby is so critical to having them join in that team that we're creating. Also encouraging them to be there by engaging them when they come, and that's important also. This is where I like to pause and remind everyone about barriers. We all know about barriers, but it would be a disservice if I didn't remind us all. And here in Miami-Dade, where I am, there are so many barriers to parents being at the bedside. Your job as healthcare professionals, obviously, is not to solve the barriers, but acknowledging them goes so far. So inviting parents to rounds, but then when parents don't come to rounds, acknowledging maybe there's children at home and there's no childcare. Maybe they're hourly workers, and if they're not at work, they're not getting paid that hourly wage. Also, transportation barriers abound down here in South Florida, and we've noticed in fixing that barrier, parents are able to come. But even fixing a barrier like a transportation barrier doesn't always get parents there. So mitigate mitigate the barriers when you can, and utilize social workers and community resources to help. Going back to your power in your aura, you all saying to them, we understand how hard it is, again, just goes so far. Okay, the power of a purpose. I think this is really important. So now we've got the parents talking to you. We've got the parents there bedside. We want to give them something to do. Think about that useless mother. She was there, she was watching her baby fight, but here we are giving them something they can do. So I believe, and what we've seen in the NICU, is that parents can always have something to do, always, that they're uniquely positioned to do outside of the medical team. The power of their voice. We know that research says they recognize mom's voice, dad's voice as well. They even recognize the language. The smell in bonding dolls during touch time, skin-to-skin care, and providing breast milk. I'm going to pause and talk about our non-birthing parent who's holding up the other end of the world with one hand. Inviting the non-birthing parent into the care at this time is so critical also, again, setting them up for discharge. They can't always participate, and we don't want to make them feel bad about not participating, but just that constant inclusion of the non-birthing parent is really critical to parents feeling successful. The power of learning new skills. They want to learn, and I think the old cliche of the NICU, the silver lining is you get free baby classes from the experts. That's what parents are always saying, right? It's true. Sometimes it doesn't land well with parents that are in the NICU, I will share that. But it is true. And so we want to teach them along the way. And we always say discharge begins at admission, right? So this is a time to teach them how to hold their baby properly, how to feed their baby properly. The power of learning new skills makes them feel able. The power of feeling effective. I'm going to pause for a story here. My mother that I was supporting 2 years ago now, named Samantha, had a baby in the NICU for 6 months. And Samantha was there every single day. She had a 20-year-old and a 21-year-old at home. So this was a surprise baby. And she sat and held that baby every single day he was in there. Dad came toward the end near discharge. Dad fed that baby like a champ. Mom couldn't feed the baby. Mom said to me, Beth, I'm not coming back to the NICU. Dad's doing a much better job and he's not here. I said, Samantha, that's ridiculous. Let's figure out what you can do. So what I would say is let's set them up for success. Let's encourage them to do what they're successful at, right? And so we did. We moved into different things, and she was able to come in, felt successful, and the baby went home with her. And it was a beautiful reminder of let's set them up for success. Celebrate small victories, mark milestones, but be careful with milestones because parents are also somewhat delicate about milestones when milestones aren't met, as we know. Okay, the power of self-care. Again, the aura, listening to you all, is so important that parents have the stamina to endure the NICU journey, whether it's a week, 6 days, like my child was in the NICU, or 6 months. We want them to get into the rhythm of predictability. We want to encourage them to have routines. We want them to feel well. You know those parents that haven't left the NICU, who are sitting next to their baby and will not leave. They want it. That was me, by the way. They want to be there. They don't want to miss a beat. They think they're doing the best thing they can for their baby, but actually they need to go home. They need to take a deep breath and they need to walk. And then they come back and they're a totally different person. So it's the NICU burnout that we all talk about so much. Your unique ability to deliver the message so it's heard. That's so important. Okay, the power of emotional wellness. I think this is the most important thing, and the thing that we're seeing in Miami as being the most a big problem for parents is the heightened postpartum depression that we're seeing among our NICU mothers and fathers. The power of emotional wellness, I made number 9 though, because what research tells us is if we do 1 through 9, 9 is better. Emotional wellness by feeling confident in the care of their baby, by being present, by feeling heard, by feeling able. All those things help parents' emotional wellness, according to research. So this is where we're going to use mentor groups to fill gaps, like an ICU baby or a local mentor group. But we know mentor groups aren't psychologists, and we also know that there's a heightened level of care that these families need. I put some resources on there, but utilizing a social worker, a psychologist outside the unit, or tasking someone within the unit to do a project to see which bridge you can make to outside resources in the community, like Postpartum International is a great one, and I'm happy to share other resources we share with our parents. The next is the power of people. We never want to treat a NICU baby like they're a routine case or a data point or a number. And I know just by virtue of being here that that's not the case, but When I see routine cases in the hospitals we're serving, it is devastating to the parents. And it does so much to set them back, which we don't want. So put on the lens of a parent, humanize the process. Up in the first, all these pictures have been pictures of our beautiful families. I'm so proud to share. But up top is Dr. Galarza of Holtz Children's Hospital. That's a 127-bed hospital in Miami-Dade County. And she humanizes the process like no other. There she is with a baby, and she's a busy, busy woman, but does so much. And whenever we're talking to the families, they always talk about Dr. Galarza. So I want to thank you so much for listening to our 10 tips. I'm going to come back to our mother, who I shared is the useless mother. I said to her, what turned the cards? What made you, now you're sitting here, your baby's a year out of the NICU, what turned the cards? She said, the NICU nurse gave me a journal. And I said, a journal? That's what did it after all this? A journal. Why did that make you feel important? I'm taking notes feverishly. This is really helpful for me to learn. She said, because it gave me something to do. The baby was 28 weeks. She was terrible respiratory problems, couldn't open the windows. And she said, it gave me something to do. The act of writing down how I was feeling, recording so I could bring it to the pediatrician later, just that single act started the slippery slope of her then feeling involved, engaged, effective, united, and all those words that we came up with. So thanks for taking the time to care about parents. And if you have any other tips I can share, please come talk to me after. Thank you.